Hello, I'm Citrus, and you're looking at the Ka Signature Metal Robot Spirits Zeta Plus C1. This action figure came out in July 2018, retailing for 15,000 yen, but once again, I didn't pay nearly that much for it. You can see on the back of the box here, this was a pre-owned item from AmiAmi, item condition A, box condition B. Now I thought this meant that the item had previously been opened before, but if we check the seals over here and over here, this had actually never been opened before. So this is a brand new sealed in box item that for one reason or another, AmiAmi decided to discount. So this one I picked up for just under 11,000 yen, which is a pretty substantial saving. And just one last thing before I open it up. You can see size-wise, it's about the size of a high grade, just a little bit taller, but a pretty reasonable size given that this is a 1/144th scale action figure. Shipping it should be no problem. Fits in SAL small packet. And inside the box we get an instruction manual. This time it's much thicker, more substantial, because this is of course a transforming action figure. Although I don't know if it's fully transforming or if there are some parts that we do have to remove and put back on, but we'll find out in a minute. For packaging, it's also much more intelligent. We have this lower tray which just has the base, and the other clamshell has the action figure, once again reinforced nicely with cardboard. So brand new in box, the figure comes inside of a plastic bag. You can see some accessories all around here and way more stand attachments than we got with the Metal Robot Spirits XS. Light assembly is required once again. Once we take it out of the plastic bag, we find that there's a little piece of plastic in the chest, which we can remove. If you have any plans to keep any of the packaging, this is probably a good piece to retain because it'll keep all of these bits from rubbing up on each other when you put the figure back into storage. And while we have the figure opened up like this, you can see on the inside most of the usual Wave Rider mechanisms we expect to see in fully transforming versions of this are all present. So it looks like there's no parts forming that we'll need to do, aside from, moving the shield around and that kind of stuff. Here is the assembled Zeta Plus next to the Metal Robot Spirits XS and the high-grade RX-78, so you can get a sense of scale. I left the gun off for now just to make handling this a bit easier. Putting everything together was very simple. Putting the guns on top of the legs was a little bit nerve-wracking, but once you get it into the right angle, it just pops right in there. And there are a couple of very interesting gimmicks. Now, first of all, there aren't really any clearance issues to worry about this time around because the Zeta Plus is a very compact design, but Bandai has nonetheless been very thoughtful about designing this. So we can lift up this pack panel here completely. The skirts move separately on it, of course, and that frees up the waist joint for us to be able to rotate the hips. And I'm not exactly sure why they chose to do it this way. Well, partly I know because for the transformation, this does hold some pieces in place later on. But maybe, in a future release, we'll see a hummingbird in this scale. And with the massive backpack on that, having something like this hold the top and the bottom portions of the torso in place means a lot more stability, which is nice. There's a bit of the thigh that's carved out right here. That's to allow the leg to rotate backwards just slightly more. You still get the rotation actually above the knee here, but this allows you to pull off some more natural looking poses with the legs when they're pointed out. And this is a bit of an oddity. I don't remember if this was the case for all Zeta kits, but the chest here doesn't really lock into place. I remember on some kits, the end of the cockpit bit right here would hook into something, so it's not just flapping up and down. And another omission is here on the foot. This block on the master grade is supposed to be able to slide forward so that this bit here meets up with this edge exactly. Here is just one piece like it is on the high grade. Not sure why Bandai chose to skip on the parts count, because as you can see, the front half and the back half of the foot are still separate pieces of plastic, but the bottom is one continuous piece. So kind of an odd choice there. Actually handling this right now, it feels a little bit light. You can definitely see there's metal in here, like on the elbows, and as we saw earlier, there's metal down there for all the transformation bits, but I'm not sure if there's actually much metal in the legs. It doesn't really feel like there's any in there aside from like the knees, and you can see a little bit of it just right here coming out of the thigh right under the joint. So not as dense as I expected, but still feels very solid in my hands. In terms of movement, the waist is pretty free once we unhook it from the back. A very solid arm joints, double bend elbow. Very stiff at the first bend, but once you can keep pushing and eventually you can get that far, which is pretty good. Down on the leg, you already saw how it can rotate up here at this ball joint. Pretty decent range, not that far out, unfortunately. But you have the rotation above the knee and the double bend in the knee, which is pretty solid. Decent range in the ankles as well. And move back up here. The neck, unfortunately, only has one joint. Kind of weird because the XS had a super emotive neck. And you think the one that would actually transform could, you know, look up a little bit higher, but you can only look down. The V-fin that comes on the kit out of the box does not move, but you can replace it with one that is collapsed for the Wave Rider mode, or you can replace it with one that does move, like so. Before we move on, let's quickly cover the accessories, which consist of these Beam Saber effect parts, the same 8 manipulators that you get with the XS Gundam, and the Zeta Plus Beam Smart Gun. Very detailed again this time as well, with a bunch of hidden handles like this one in here, this other one back here, and a rotating disc radome just like before. These little panels that you can remove and insert into them the Wave Rider landing gear. These are all painted die cast, so they feel very solid in your hands, and they make a nice clink sound when they touch each other. And last but not least, we have the all-important display stand, which has the same kind of arm that we saw with the Metal Robot Spheres XS. Once again, you can plug it into one of two positions on the stand itself, and you can put the figure onto the stand in two ways, with this clip that goes on the bottom, or this one that goes into the back. All right, let's put it into Wave Rider mode. If you've done a Zeta transformation before, the steps here are basically the same. Okay, and here is the completed Wave Rider, which looks really good. Unfortunately, even with a lot of the engineering that's gone into this, this hasn't become an easier transformation over time. A lot of the complexity comes with these metal joints here, which, although they feel really solid, it always feels like I'm going to break something when I'm moving something down there, so always scary. These cannons on the wings aren't illustrated in the manual, and you won't find any pictures of them deployed on the box. But you can see there's very clearly a little tab in the front here, so if you push on it, you can get enough leverage to sort of pull it out. I don't know if that was a feature they sort of built into this and sort of forgot about, but there's a very clear rivet hole right there. You can see that this hinges on, so there you go, little hidden feature, I guess. To display the Wave Rider on the base, you can use this two-arm arrangement, which is kind of ugly, but it's actually pretty stable. Or you can use this clear piece, which is also fairly stable, and there's a hole on the bottom for you to connect it to the main stand arm. Alright, so let's just get this out of the way first. The transformation is a nightmare. This is the usual Zeta origami, so of course it's never going to be like a walk in the park. I honestly don't think there's anybody who ever transforms one of these and thinks, yeah, I'm going to go back and do that again. That was fun. So I'm going to leave it in Wave Rider for a while. If you're looking at this action figure and thinking, hey, you know, it's been like more than 10 years since the last time Bandai has done one of these things for real. Maybe it'll be better now. No, it's not. It just isn't. This is the exact same hair-pullingly frustrating experience It has always been since like 1998. The only positive I can say is that it definitely feels like a less fragile experience than before because the new metal joints have, well, I should say fairly clear ways of moving. And on the plastic side of things, the materials are a little bit more softer, more pliant this time, so you don't feel like you're going to snap something every single time you move a piece out of place. That said, the finish isn't ultra durable. You can scratch the plastic really easily, and you just have to be super mindful of where you're putting your pressure every single step along the way. So would I recommend this action figure? Hell yeah, because if you're into Zetas, you probably are already into this. And for $110, which is about this price that this is going for in the aftermarket right now, it is a pretty good deal. Now, it's kind of interesting because even though this figure has been out for a year now, Bandai has only just announced the first web-exclusive variation of this, which is exactly the same as this release, except on the shoulders, instead of saying the number 2, it says a number 3. Very odd, because I would have expected by now that at least a A1 variant would have been released, maybe in like the Amuro Karabo red-white color scheme. But nope, it's just the exact same Task Force Alpha blue-gray color scheme. And I think that probably speaks to the unpopularity of this action figure as a whole, because it is expensive and you have to be, in my opinion, kind of a masochist to want one, because to fully enjoy all of it, you have to be willing or possibly even enjoy the idea of subjecting yourself to the whole transformation sequence. And honestly, that's okay, because I am one of those people. This is one of the better, if not the best, executions of the whole Zeta transformation scheme. On the other hand, if you really like Zetas, but you hate the transformation and you're willing to forgo the professional finish and the die-cast parts, the high-grade Zeta Pluses are, in this case, actually a very good alternative. They're way cheaper, much more available, and way less frustrating to transform back and forth, even if the final result in Mobile Suit or Wave Rider mode may not be super accurate proportionally. So that's all for this review. Thank you for joining me on this delightfully painful journey, and I'll see you next time.